Welcome back, friends. I am so glad you're here. We are approaching such a busy season as spring comes around, the weather warms up, even though we have still a bit of snow here in the Midwest, and just everything that comes with owning a new homestead and all of the planning and just thinking that needs to go with that, and work, of course. And I am just, I'm in the kitchen a lot, but I think as the summer comes along, the spring, I'm gonna have to start thinking of quicker meals to make, but in the meantime, I'm enjoying the winter weather and a little bit of the slowness that comes with that, and I'm gonna share with you some of the from scratch meals that I made my family this week. They are so good, and I'm also going to share modifications to make them quicker as the spring and summer comes around and we want to spend a little bit more time outside. So I was just prepping some eggplant to roast and washing my rice. You guys, so important when you're making a rice dish, and I added a little bit of turmeric to it. I am going to make up some Mediterranean meatballs. We're going to make like a knockoff naf naf. I absolutely love this dish. It is so good. And to my meatballs, I add a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion flakes, some dill. Lots of dill is really important for me in these Mediterranean meatballs. It's a key flavor. And of course, salt and pepper. And then always when I'm making meatballs, I do a 1 egg to 1 pound of meat ratio. So I have 1 pound of ground beef and 1 pound of sausage in here. You could just use ground beef if you wanted. I find that the sausage adds a little bit more flavor and a little bit of moisture. And then 1/2 cup of almond flour, and I just mix it up. You could use breadcrumbs, of course. I just happen to have almond flour on hand all the time because I bought a really big bag of it a long time ago and I just haven't used it up, and it works really well in my meatballs. Also adds just a little bit more protein too. So I make up small meatballs. I find that it is the easiest to cook them up quickly, and that way you just want to make sure you have even sizes regardless of what you do so that they all cook up the same and evenly. So here I am just putting the meatballs in the pan. I don't want to overcrowd them. I probably put about 12, 13 in a pan at a time. I usually have to do this in batches, but I just watch it. I put it about medium heat and I just turn them probably in about like 5 minutes or so, and then I put a cover over it so they can start to steam, and I just keep an eye on it. And just because I'm using pork, I tend to use a thermometer to make sure that they're totally done. That just makes me feel better, but usually if it's just meat or like ground beef, I don't really care that much. And I'm just chopping up some chives for a little bit of garnish later and making the delicious baba ganoush. I love baba ganoush. We also love hummus, but it just doesn't agree with us, the chickpeas, as much. Legumes, I don't know. We just can't handle it. I love adding some lemon, some olive oil, and a little bit of garlic in here, and then just blending that up. It's so easy to make. I wish I had made a double batch, honestly, because this went really quickly because we loved it so much. Alright, time for the taste test here. This is what it looks like. I'm also going to throw some caramelized onions on here from some leftovers from night before. I put the meatballs, the baba ganoush, some leftover chives I have from another meal, some leftover poblanos. I personally love eating these with pickles and pickled green onions. I have to go to the store still, so I don't have any pickles, and I just didn't have time to make pickled onions yet. So, but this is still going to be super delicious. Let's give it a try. So good. The dill is really coming through on the meatballs. The baba ganoush is like a 10 out of 10. Let's talk about how to make this meal easier on a weeknight. If you're a beginner cook and you're just learning how to make food from scratch, or you just need something that's quicker on a weeknight, you, instead of making the meatballs, you can just fry up the meat together. So you can mix up the pork and the ground beef and just fry it like a ground beef. Instead of making the baba ganoush, you can just buy some hummus, or if you can buy baba ganoush in the store. That will obviously save you a little bit of time. If you make this, I would love to hear how it goes. Next up on the list are some super delicious chicken tenders and homemade french fries. These are actually so much easier than you think, and it just takes a little bit of prep work, and you have some super delicious homemade, basically like takeout. Now, I am using some pickle juice and a little bit of milk as kind of a brine for these chicken tenders. Now, I use chicken thighs. I find that they stay the most moist, but you can use chicken tenders. Chicken thighs are also cheaper, so if you're looking to save a little bit of money, they're a great way to save it. Now, I am cutting up potatoes for the fries. Now, I usually use baking potatoes, and I highly recommend continuing to use baking potatoes. I wasn't planning on making fries tonight, but my husband threw it out there. This is the potatoes I had on hand, so I cut them up and I gave them a try. Now, I cut mine up super thin, like McDonald's slices thin, because I find that they fry the best when you're making homemade fries. They don't get like super soggy. And so I also tried something new here, and this maybe might be the difference more than the potatoes, as I used pickle brine and water instead of my normal vinegar, water, and salt solution. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, I've done this more than once, and so I'll link my videos where I go into more detail on my regular fry recipe, which is highly what I recommend here. But these still turned out really good, but I just think that my vinegar, water, and salt solution is just way better. It produced a way better fry. Now, I'm just making up the flour kind of like mixture that we're going to dip the chicken tenders into. I usually put like a bunch of spices in there, like paprika, chili powder, salt, garlic, pepper, all kinds of different spices. You can really put whatever you like in there, but just make sure you put a lot of spices in there so that it's super flavorful when you fry it up, because this is where a lot of your flavor is going to come from. Now, you really want to pat down your chicken tenders. Like, make sure that there is no bald spots on there. Everything is covered in flour, because this is what's going to ensure that you have a super crispy, great covered chicken tender. Next, you want to fry up the fries and the chicken tenders. I do my fries for about 10 minutes, and then I do my chicken tenders for 6 and flipping them halfway through. That seems to be pretty good, and they get nice and crispy, not overdone, and the chicken gets cooked all the way through. If you're a little bit nervous about the chicken and you're not sure it's done, you can always use a meat thermometer and just double check that it is at the correct temperature. I believe 165 is correct, but most thermometers will tell you what is the correct temperature. Now, let's talk about how to make this a little bit quicker on a weeknight. Now, if I were to make this again, I would probably just skip the fries if I was in a rush. And honestly, it's a little bit heavy to have all of this fried food for me. Anyways, my family loves it, but I honestly was craving a little bit of a salad. So I would probably just make a salad on the side to be really quick. You could always get those dump and go ones if you really are in a rush. And this is what they turned out to be. They were so good, nice and crispy, and obviously a 10 out of 10. I also made some homemade ranch really quick. I have a video on that, which I'll link below in case you haven't made that before. Definitely worth it and way cheaper than the store. The last thing that we're going to make this week is a lentil and fideo soup, and I got the inspiration from Eva Longoria's new Mexican foods cookbook. I absolutely love getting cookbooks from the library, and this seemed just like something different and out of our normal realm of what we make, and I'm really trying to get more like vegetarian, vegan options. So I chopped up some eggplant here, and I'm just going to roast it in the oven at 425 for about 25 minutes. And I'm also going to grind up some coriander seeds. I absolutely love my mortar and pestle. I thought it would be so hard to use, but honestly, it is so easy, and having the fresh spices really makes such a difference. And so I just sprinkled a little bit of this, some salt and pepper, mixed it around, and threw it in the oven. So into the soup, we're going to put in a chopped onion, finely diced. I did about half an onion. You could probably put a whole onion in there too. I put in some olive oil in a Dutch oven, and I threw that in there, and I let it simmer kind of for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then while I was chopping up the carrots, which I quartered and then sliced. And you guys, this garlic press, I can't believe I have waited so long to get one. I've seen so many people have them, and I found one and I just picked it up. And you guys, it seriously is such a game changer on chopping up garlic. I will never go back to cutting it with a knife. I promise you that. So, and then we're going to put in an entire can of tomato sauce, mix it up, and also put in a cup of lentils and stir that in, and about 4 to 6 cups of broth. Now, I did bone broth, so it doesn't really necessarily make it vegetarian anymore, but that's what I had on hand and I didn't want that to go to waste. Now, speaking of bone broth, I always save all of my scraps. Highly recommend. Don't throw those things out. These make wonderful, wonderful broth. Even if you want to keep this vegetarian in the future, you can just boil your veggie scraps. You don't need bones. I also chopped up 1 jalapeno pepper. This did not make it spicy at all. If you like spice, I would probably put 2 in. That's what we'll do next time. I honestly thought it would make it spicy, but it didn't. I don't know, maybe there's just too much broth. But this is what the eggplant looked like. It turned out really good, and that's what we sprinkle right on top of the soup. And so I just let the soup simmer for like 25-30 minutes. I added in the fideo noodles, and I also made a little bit of cornbread on the side. I looked up a recipe that didn't need eggs because we were totally out, and this one actually was really good, so I'll be sure to link that in the description below. This is what the soup turned out to be. It was so good. And if you guys really like recipes like this, I highly recommend going to the description and looking at my free recipe guide. I have about 5 recipes in there. It's for weeknight from scratch meals, things that you'll really love. And I'll be coming out with a budget version pretty soon here. So make sure you're subscribed and that you give this video a like so that people know that this is a good video to watch.